Unfortunately, we need to talk about what happened to Marcellus Williams. Or we just talked about the man on Monday. He was convicted of murdering a woman by the name of Felicia Gale back in 1998, though he has always maintained his innocence. And last January, the prosecuting attorney in the same office that convicted Williams more than 20 years earlier, he said that he thought Williams was innocent as well, with him even filing a motion to overturn the conviction, saying that the original prosecutor wrongly rejected a black juror, that the two main witnesses were not credible, and then on top of those things, that there wasn't any physical evidence tying Williams to the murder, with actually last month a new analysis finding no traces of Williams' DNA on the murder weapon. Instead, they found that the knife had been contaminated with DNA from a prosecutor and investigator working on the original case. But instead of that exonerating him because the evidence had been mishandled, it couldn't be used to prove Williams' innocence. And so eventually, after a bunch of back and forth, we got to this week, with the Missouri Supreme Court at least agreeing to consider a last-minute appeal by Williams' attorneys, just a day before his scheduled execution. Right, and Williams' lawyers didn't really even focus on the innocence claim, but basically explained how the process had been so flawed that his execution just couldn't be justified. But by Monday evening, we saw the Supreme Court not buying that, and they declined to halt Williams' execution, with the opinion saying, despite nearly a quarter century of litigation in both state and federal courts, there is no credible evidence of actual innocence or any showing of a constitutional error undermining confidence in the original judgment. And in the end, his other avenues of appeal, they failed as well. Governor Mike Parson denied clemency, and finally, yesterday, the U.S. Supreme Court rejected the final request to halt the execution, though that split 6-3, with the objecting justices being Sotomayor, Kagan, and Jackson. So last night, after more than 2 decades on death row, Marcellus Williams was executed. And one of the things with this is he is actually just one of 5 people being executed this week. The first execution was carried out on Friday in South Carolina, again after a failed appeal to the state Supreme Court, with that being a man by the name of Freddie Owens, who was convicted for a 1997 murder. And very notably there, he was killed days after a key witness in the case admitted to lying on the stand, with the witness writing in a statement to the court, "I thought the real shooter or his associates might kill me if I named him to the police." Also last night, along with Williams, there was a man in Texas who was executed for killing his infant son, though very notably there, he had waived his right to appeal and there was no claims of innocence there. And then finally, you have 2 more executions scheduled for tomorrow. In Alabama, you have Alan Miller, who's already gone through 1 botched execution, and he's being put to death for killing 3 men during back-to-back workplace shootings in 1999. And then in Oklahoma, you have Emmanuel Littlejohn, who's set to receive a lethal injection in connection to the killing of a convenience store owner during a robbery in 1992. And notably there, you have Littlejohn admitting to his role in the robbery, but claiming he didn't fire the fatal shot. And while the state's Pardon and Parole Board voted 3-2 last month to recommend that his life be spared, the governor has yet to make a clemency decision. But if the 2 remaining scheduled executions are carried out this week, it will mark the first time since 2003 that 5 were held in 7 days, according to the nonprofit Death Penalty Information Center. Plus, actually looking into it, it'll mean that the United States will have reached 1,600 executions since the death penalty was reinstated by the Supreme Court in 1976. And notably, this after executions climbed for the 2nd year in a row in 2023, with Texas and Florida accounting for more than half. Which I will say, regardless of your opinion on capital punishment in general, is something that's scary when you look at cases like Marcellus Williams and the fact that at least 200 people have been exonerated after being sentenced to death since 1973. Because it makes you wonder, out of the nearly 1,600 people who were ultimately executed, how many were innocent?